Hey folks, welcome back. Chapter 14, Organizational Behavior, 14th edition, Griffin and Phillips. We're talking about organizational structure and design in this chapter. All right, let's go. Learning outcomes. After studying this chapter, you should be able to identify the elements of organizational structure, describe mechanistic and organic structures, explain what influences an organization's structure, describe the basic types of organizational structures, and discuss 4 contemporary issues in organizational structure. All right. 14.1, Elements of Organizational Structure. Organizational design and structure. Organizational design, the process of selecting and managing aspects of organizational structure and culture to enable the organization to achieve its goals. Organizational structure, the formal system of task, power, and reporting relationships. So this is sometimes called an org chart, an organization chart, and it basically shows like CEO at the top, below him, COO, CFO, CDSO, blah, blah, and then below that, different teams, etc. Okay. Influences employee behavior by enabling or restricting communication, teamwork, and cooperation, as well as intergroup relationships. An org chart, organizational chart, a diagram of the chain of command and reporting relationships in a company. So organizational design is the process of creating a structure. A chart is just that structure represented in a chart. Here is a sample org chart. And this chart has a narrow span of control. You've got the president, a couple of vice presidents, 2 managers under them, and then associates below them. Here, characteristics of organizational structure. So these are the things that can vary in different structures. You've got division of labor, the extent to which employees specialize or generalize. You've got span of control, the number of people reporting directly to an individual. Hierarchy, the degree to which some employees have formal authority over others. And formalization, the extent to which organizational rules, procedures, and communications are written down and closely followed. And centralization, the degree to which power and decision-making authority are concentrated at higher levels of the organization rather than distributed. So here we have an example of a wide span of control. So we now have less levels. Before we had, the associates here are basically one step away from the CEO, right? And there's more vice presidents or whatever these people would be called. Could we call them different things? So this is a wider span. So the org chart is literally by definition wider rather than taller hierarchically. Has fewer levels, tends to be somewhat flat. This is also what you call a flat organizational structure. Okay, so centralized versus decentralized, power and decision-making authority concentrated at higher levels. Lower levels have more autonomy and authority. Clear lines of communication and responsibility and centralized. Flatter structures, less need for middle management. Promotes product innovation, faster decision-making. Best for non-routine tasks in a complex environment. Those are decentralized. Centralized decision implementation tends to be straightforward. Okay. So if your task is very simple and straightforward, highly rigid rules, precise organization can be helpful. If you have to do something more ambiguous and creative and complex, what you want to do is hire the best people and sort of set them free to figure it out. Because no one person can sort of solve all these really complex problems. One person can manage a lot of little details and set up systems, but one person can't solve 10 different complex problems. Okay, so let's talk about mechanistic versus organic designs. Mechanistic means rigid, traditional bureaucracy, hierarchical, uniform job descriptions, may minimize cost, slow to capitalize on new opportunities. Organic organization is flexible and decentralized, open communication channels, focus on adaptability, faster response to market and competitive advantages, may increase job satisfaction and commitment. So the flat organization or the wide organization is going to be closer to this organic. It's not exactly the same concept, but it's going to tend to sort of have more of the characteristics of an organic organization. So if you want to move in that direction, you want to think a flatter organization. Let's skip that. Okay. 14.4 figure, mechanistic and organic continuum / organic continuum. So we get basically 6 structures or 6 models going from a mechanistic structure to an organic structure. We've got rigid bureaucracy at the very one end, at the very other end, loosely coupled organic network. 2, bureaucracy run by top management team. 3, bureaucracy with cross-departmental meetings and teams and task force. So you could have a cross-functional teams. So that's sort of a way of having a hierarchical structure, but getting some more cooperation and cross-pollination. A matrix organization sort of takes that idea a little further. Project or team-based organization. Things are becoming really decentralized and organic now. And here you sort of don't really even necessarily have maybe job titles, right? But this is going to work much better for like a startup company or something that's just beginning, doesn't have a ton of employees. Its goals are maybe a little ambiguous, are unclear how you're going to reach them, right? As things grow and there's more structured tasks that need to happen on a day-to-day basis, going all the way to this point is going to could be problematic. Okay, 14.2, determinants of organizational structure. Business strategy should be matched to organizational structure for best performance. Production technology includes unit production, mass production, and continuous production. So unit production is producing in small batches or making one-of-a-kind custom products. Mass production is producing large volumes of identical products. And continuous production means machines continuously make the product. So unit production is going to be more compatible with the flat structure, low managerial span of control. Mass production is going to be more compatible with a tall bureaucratic structure. Okay. What influences organizational structure? Being a low-cost producer would require a more hierarchical and rigid structure than would pursuing an innovation strategy. Okay. So that would be an example of business strategy. How business strategy could influence the organizational structure. The external environment can influence the organizational structure. A rapidly changing environment requires more flexible structure than a more stable one. The nature of the organization's talent, right? If workers have professional skills and need to work together, then a flatter team-based structure would be more appropriate than a taller bureaucratic structure. Size matters. Larger organizations tend to have greater specialization, greater hierarchy, and more rules than smaller firms. This is also because a large firm is probably one that has existed for a long period of time. So over that time, things have sort of become crystallized into place. Expectations of how employees should behave. If employees are expected to follow explicit rules and procedures, hierarchical centralized structure would be called for. Organization's production technology. If the firm uses unit production and makes custom products, a flat structure with a low managerial span of control is most appropriate. And organizational change. As the environment and business strategies change, organizational structures also change. So there's a lot of factors in terms of what is going to influence how an organization is structured. 14.3, types of organizational structures. So in the early stages, organizational structures look something like this. Pre-bureaucratic structure, smaller organizations with low standardization, total centralization, and mostly one-on-one communication. This could be a small store with just a handful of employees. Could be a startup, a tech startup. Bureaucratic structure is organizational structure with formal division of labor, hierarchies, and standardization of work procedures. Bases for grouping employees into subunits. We could group employees into different subunits based on knowledge and skills, business function, work processes, output, client, or location. Structure is based on groupings. So you could have a functional structure. So a functional structure groups people with the same skills or use similar tools or work processes into departments. This works well in stable environments. Potential for poor coordination and communication. You could have a division structure, so a collection of functions organized around a particular geographic area, product, or service, right? So Southeast Division, Northwest Division, etc. Improves communication, enables flexibility, reduces economies of scale. Or you could have a matrix structure where employees report to both a project or a project team leader and to a functional manager. Generates complex reporting relationships, enables quick responsiveness, and more effective decision making. So this is a org chart for a matrix structure, so we can see it visually. So you've got the president, and under the president, you've got 3 team leaders, as well as a research department leader, a marketing leader, production leader, and a finance leader. And you can think of these different points as employees or groups of employees, right? So these people report to team leader 1 as well as research department leader 1. These people over here report to team leader 2 as well as research property leader. These people here, or let's say here, these people here report to team leader 3 and the marketing department leader, etc. Okay, so structure is based on groupings. 2, team-based structure, horizontal or vertical teams define part or all of the organization. This is best when collaboration and inputs from several functional areas are required. You have a lattice structure with cross-functional and cross-level subteams are formed and dissolved as necessary to complete specific projects and tasks. Typical in consulting organizations, minimal hierarchy. This is kind of like a matrix structure, but it's sort of like a more free-flowing matrix structure where things can change depending on the need for a particular client, assuming you're doing consulting. Network organization, a collection of, this refers to a collection of autonomous units or firms that act as a single larger entity using social mechanisms for coordination and control. Requires much coordination and control. Contemporary issues in organizational structure, 14.4. Virtual organization. Virtual organization is an organization that contracts out almost all of its functions, except for the company name, and managing coordination among the contractors. Often uses virtual teams like by technology, tends to be complex. Formal contracts and legal agreements can help manage relationships, reduce costs and increase flexibility, create a competitive advantage. So I might have a consulting firm and I might contract out, all the different aspects, right? So I might hire people to do this analysis and hire people to do that analysis and hire people to do this analysis. And then I go back, I take all those analyses, I go back and meet with the client and I say, here's the analyses we've done. So, okay. Integrating employees, or it could be, another example would be like manufacturing. You have these people manufacture this, you have these people manufacture this, you have these people assemble it, and then you just sell it. All right, segments employees into divisions, functional areas, or groups. So these could either be direct contact, liaison role, or task force, or cross-functional team. Direct contact means managers from different units informally work together to coordinate or to identify and solve shared problems. Liaison role, a manager or team member is held formally accountable for communicating and coordinating with other groups. Task force, a temporary committee formed to address a specific project or problem. And a cross-functional team is a permanent task force created to address specific problems or recurring needs. Okay. Communities of practice. Okay, we are rounding into the finish here. Communities of practice refer to groups of people whose shared expertise and interest in a joint enterprise informally bind them together. People involved share their knowledge and experiences in open and creative ways, rarely shown on org charts, often spans company boundaries, cultivated by identifying and bringing in the right people together, building trust, and providing an appropriate infrastructure. So this could just be a group of people who, do similar work, like maybe, everyone who's doing research on a particular topic, they get together regularly and have lunch or something like that and share notes on what they're doing. Enabling knowledge networks, start with a clear area of business need, start small, recruit management involvement, use technology that supports the community's needs and that community members are able to use and comfortable using. Respect and build on informal employee initiatives already underway, and celebrate contributions and building on small successes. Right? So we want to sort of encourage these communities of practice, these knowledge networks. Effects of restructuring on performance. Restructuring can improve a struggling firm's performance, but it's not a cure-all. So sometimes large organizations or small organizations, but really it would be more of a large, because in a small organization, you don't have a lot of structure to restructure. So if performance is not optimal where somebody thinks it should be, you could try and restructure the whole thing and figure out new ways to organize the employees and new reporting relationships and things like that. Or maybe you offshore a certain manufacturing product. But that's going to be stressful and difficult process. So it's not automatically going to fix things. And it could potentially make things worse in the short term, right? A lot of times restructuring will involve downsizing. So a lot of times restructuring is a euphemism for downsizing, which is a euphemism for firing people, right? So you might get rid of entire departments and things like that. But that can affect the people that are still working there. So, you have to really be sure that restructuring is going to be helpful, or you want to really consider the potential downsides. Okay, and that ends chapter 14, organizational structure. All right, y'all. I will talk to you soon. Have a great day.